Talking today to George Twumasi, who is the Deputy Chairman and CEO of ABN, African Broadcast Networks. George, tell me, what is ABN?
ABN, the African Broadcast Network, fundamentally is developing a Pan-African network that will inspire and motivate Africa into its social and economic potential in the fullest.
And what do you think that potential is at the moment?
Africa is yet to unleash its creative genius, apart from the arts and culture, in terms of engineering, mathematics, different forms of social arts and humanities. It is yet to play a significant role in the new global information order. And I believe that television is a powerful catalyst for social change, especially within the context of a continent where under 60% of the people or thereabouts are still semi-literate or illiterate.
And what role do you think public broadcasting will play within that?
Public broadcasting is the custodian, in my view, of an unspoken social contracts between the new evolving democratic systems, civil society, and the aspirations of the different communities across the continent. Its role is therefore synergistic, creating an objective matrix for the development of viable information systems, educating the citizens of Africa across a graduated and systematic matrix of society, i.e. primary education, secondary education, adult education, civic responsibility, and governance.
And how do we get from Mr. President TV to this vision of public broadcasting?
The digitization of the airwaves will naturally create a democratization of information. Therefore, what is likely to happen, Russell, is that in the past, where analog television has constrained and therefore given an adulterated power base to many a government across the continent, the very nature of digital TV breaks that monopoly. Therefore, plurality will create diversity, and as a result, different strains of thoughts will ensue. With that, there will be the push and shoving, or the push and pull of information flow, and with that, consensus will be built.
We were talking a moment ago about the need to build an African content industry. How do you think that will happen?
I think the telecoms revolution and those who are at the forefront of it are likely to want to make a lot more money than they currently are. And with the explosion, according to Informa Telecom, by 2014, there will be a value-added services industry in play worth about $11.4 billion US per annum. What that means is content will be required to drive those value-added services, particularly as the internet broadband becomes faster and faster on the continent, and increasingly so people are able to download visual material. I think the natural configuration of multimedia in terms of triple play, for example, voice on demand, IPTV, etc., requires that content platforms or production companies change their financial models to embrace the different platforms that currently exist. And when and as consumers are given choice, demand will begin to drive the supply chain. Money will therefore flow naturally into the pockets of producers.
And there's a skills deficit, isn't there, in the African broadcast and film industries? How would you address that training need, as it were?
My experience, having worked in London or in Europe for as long as I have, is that there's a lot of intellectual capital that is very keen at the right price and also at the right subsidized price to flow into Africa. a good example is the work that Balancing Act does in Africa. There are different strains of professional excellence within the huge scope of production, technology, broadcasting skills, management that exists. There's a desire, a huge desire by many experienced industry professionals to work with Africans. One, on a mentoring basis, and two, on a form of remunerative basis, which is not necessarily going to be cutthroat like in the West, but nonetheless of extreme value. And I think it's up to African entrepreneurs, to create a system for the sakes of their own respective companies of embracing that kind of intellectual capital skill sets that exists out there.
And the third piece is, in a way, leadership and efficient management, as you've described it. How will that be brought about? How will things change there?
That's an interesting question.
Because it's about professionalisation, isn't it, really?
It is. I think competition, one of the things is the regulatory environment, I do not believe can contain the onslaughts that's about to happen in Africa. All manner of information will flow into the continent and it will be overwhelming. For that reason, the quality of content or the content value proposition will have to change. And for a pure commercial reason, those market leaders that currently exist on the continent will either have to acquire the right skill sets or become dinosaurs.
So it's change or die.
Yes.
And what's your own plans to contribute to this growing content industry?
I believe that the Africa Media Initiative, which is run by Amadou Mataba in Nairobi, is a very good start. Its focus currently is in journalism, but I have no doubts that it will embrace broadcasting and digital television, because that's the next big thing that's going to happen on the continent, and that's where industry will invest money in. So ABN's role within the context of the new institutional frameworks that exist is to facilitate. ABN has created the African Public Broadcasting Foundation, which has a long-term vision of, one, creating a system of knowledge transfer, building a portal which is accessible for a small fee to entrepreneurs on the continent. Secondly, to create seminal points of interaction through workshops and training programs that are paid for. And three, through promoting public service broadcast by creating a digitized archive of available material which is rights cleared. So that will be a contribution. Okay,
and you've got your own plans in terms of looking at satellite broadcasting and bouquets. Give me an outline of that. I know it's early days.
Yes, right now the giants that exist on the continent, as it were, MultiChoice, which has done a phenomenally well for itself, Camel, Horizon, and increasingly so Star TV, still reach only less than 5 million people or TV households in a continent which is likely to explode exponentially into 90-100 million television household consumer base. Most of that expected projection or that projection will ensue or will happen around low income earners. Our target is low income. Basically to create.
So it would be a free to air offering.
It's in part it will be a highly affordable offering with a system of engagement which does not put a strain on the consumer. And it will be a long-term, it will be a contract, a commercial contract between the consumer and our company. The key is African content. The key in terms of breaking into the market in a big way, which has not yet happened and waiting to happen, is the creation of a system which allows quality African content made by Africans for Africans, speaking to African aspirations, to happen. And that's a market waiting to explode, which is complete virgin territory. It's a green field.
And who's behind ABN? Give me some sense of...
ABN has had a number of high net worth individuals investing in it. Our approach has been to create a research base, a strong research base, and through that, a strong financial model, a number of my financial models. We have done that. We are selling those models as we speak, and we've generated a significant amount of interest. Where we are looking to beyond high net worth individuals, we're looking at technology-focused companies that want to come into the continent, who don't understand the fragmented marketplace. ABN is, as a concept, needed in the market. Africa needs an African broadcasting network. Simply put, an African broadcasting network which is scalable, but also localized at the same time. And that's the market we're looking at. Those who are behind us, those we've needed to be behind us, are the African national broadcasters and the mainstream broadcasters, and they are.
George, thanks for talking to me today.